Now, the number of people getting married is on a steady decline, with the number of church weddings falling steadily over a decade. So, what difference did yesterday make? Does it make marriage seem more attractive to young people? Well, Michaela Hyde is from the Marriage Foundation, which campaigns to promote marriage as the key to social stability in the UK. Morning, Michaela.
Good morning.
So, does it really make a difference when we've got something like this, a very modern wedding, lots of people talking about both the historic and the modern being combined together? Does it make people turn to their other half and say, should we go and do that?
Well, I think it must do. And I say that because when we had the last royal wedding, which was William and Kate in 2011, what was interesting, there was a huge increase in the year that followed. So in 2012, in the first quarter, marriage rates went up by 25%. And in the second quarter, they went up by 13%. So it was a massive surge. I think it was the biggest since the war. So clearly, outside events do impact on private decisions at home. So whether people are literally sitting on their sofas and thinking, wow, that's amazing, should we do the same, I don't know, but clearly it does make a difference. And again, I mean, that's why at the Marriage Foundation we are serious about what we're doing, because we do want to, if you like, restore the nation's faith in marriage. And I think yesterday's wedding will have done that.
And the thing is, it does make a difference. You do feel different when you are married, no matter how long you've been with the person, no matter how much you know them. There is just something, and I can't sort of explain it in a way.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've been married for 19 years this summer, and I have no regrets. My husband may or may not be listening to this interview, but I'm telling you now, no regrets. It's been amazing. But I think what I would say, and what we see at the Marriage Foundation, the big difference is that when people choose to get married, they choose commitment from the outset, and they sit together and they say, let's do this thing. Let's spend the rest of our lives together. So the fundamental difference is they start off life together saying, we are committed to making this happen. Rather than, if you like, what we look at it and say, well, that's a decision, sort of deciding and not sliding. And often with a cohabitation, what will happen is let's see what happens and let's try this out. But there hasn't been a point of sitting down, sort of saying, well, let's spend the rest of our lives together. And what sometimes happens, what we see frequently, is there's actually, if you like, in an age of equality, there's inequality in that cohabitation, because one partner will inevitably always be more committed than the other, because there's not been that moment of decision. And typically we'll see that being the woman. Actually, the woman tends to be more committed. So that's one of the key drivers for making relationships work. And actually, I mean, one of the things that sort of been looking at this morning is, is marriage on the decrease? Yes, it is. Sort of, if you like, there are less marriages happening, but among the wealthy, those on high income, those with an income of more than 43,000, there isn't actually really any difference at all. There hasn't been for some time. Where the big change is happening is in the low income earners, in those who are sort of earning less than 16k, for example. Only 24% are getting married compared to the 87% of high income. So there's a real shift. There's a marriage gap, and I think for me personally, that really sort of saddens me, because it feels as though the wealthier are reaping the benefits of those long-lasting committed relationships. They're seeing great outcomes for their children. Their kids are growing up with with both parents and that sort of thing. But actually, in those low-income families where the parents are lone parents, and it's harder, it's more difficult, and as sad as it is, the reality is outcomes for a lot of those children are massively decreased, because they're in that kind of cohabiting or lone parent situation. And actually, often people talk about divorce rates. Again, divorce rates, we did peak in the 80s and 90s, but divorce rates are the same as they were in 1975. So the biggest kind of driver of family breakdown is actually cohabitation. I think that's probably a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. We'll all know somebody who's in a cohabiting relationship and it's working fine. Of course we will, and we'll know marriages that haven't worked. But statistically, people that choose to marry tend to stay married, and those that cohabit, sadly, are more likely to break up.
Some of that must, though, be surely down to finance, Michaela, because and I know myself, stick the word wedding in the sentence somewhere and mysteriously the price is doubled, trebled, quadrupled, whatever.
I
So
know.
actually financially making that event, you you can, and they talk about doing weddings on the cheap, but that doing wedding on a cheap for some will be way out of their price range, and the house or the car or something else will be more important.
Yeah, I do completely get that point. And again, I think almost what I would love to see is I'd love to see a sort of a national shift in terms of our expectations around the wedding day, because there's almost so much invested on that one day. And actually, that is just the very beginning of that lifetime together. And actually, the big shift, the big change for a couple is their decision to commit and to be together forever. And I think you're right. There is a huge kind of cost to a wedding day, but there doesn't have to be. It is true that you can have a marriage on a shoestring. You don't have to spend all the money. I mean, my own wedding, we didn't spend a huge amount. We literally spent the sort of the small amount that both of our parents gave to us, and we didn't have any money to spend on it. So the wedding cost what we had. And obviously, lots of people get themselves into debt and that sort of thing. And I think actually, if we start to think, okay, what's marriage all about? Is it about the big party? Yes, we want it to be a special day. But the big point is, let's choose to commit to one another for the rest of our lives. And if we can actually find the focus there and find other ways of making it a special day, then I think that would be a great thing to happen. I mean, certainly again, I'm talking from experience, my own wedding day. For example, we didn't have enough money to organise a car. So a friend of a friend said, it's fine, I'll drive you in my Sovereign Daimler. I will say that it was a friend of a friend of a friend. It was quite removed. But they offered to drive us. And it was the most special time in this lovely car. They produced a bottle of champagne for us on our way to our reception. We had no clue they were doing any of this. And all of that was just because it's a special day for you, we want to do this. And I think actually you can bring out the best in others when you make the day itself something that is a bit more of a budget, because people want to make it special for you.
Michaela Hyde from the Marriage Foundation, thank you for joining me on Sunday Breakfast this morning.